Well, welcome to the Legends Community Show here on thepowerofvoices.com. Of course, I am your host, Greg Bell. And guys, as you can see by my den, I'm in an undisclosed place here in the Midwest, having a ball of fun in the heart of the D with all my Notre Dame gear behind me. I'm just at heaven. I'm having a ball of fun. Just left the Tigers game. They were tied up with Kansas City 3-3. And I said to myself, oh, I got to get to the show. So that's what we're here today to talk to you about a lot of things that are going on in the world of sports, as well as politics, as well as what the heck is going on in Big D. Not that Detroit, but Dallas, guys. What's going on with the Cowboys right now? I want to talk about a few things. Of course, this wouldn't be the Legends Community Show if we didn't talk about the legend that is O.J. Simpson. We're going to talk about the juice. Where does he go from where he's at today? You know, he'll probably be released from jail in October, jumping on a flight heading back to Florida. But what does he do from that point? A lot of golf in his future. We know one thing, very little drinking is going to be involved. No drugs are going to be involved. And if he's smart, he won't have anything to do with a lot of criminal activity, and definitely not guys that are carrying a lot of hardware, because he won't be able to register a gun either. The question, of course, came up yesterday. And, you know, it's funny because you see things online. You see a lot of things that people just want to throw out there. But they asked, would he be able to register a hunting knife? So much going on in the world of sports. Want to talk about where does this put the Goldmans and the rewards from the civil damage? You know, I think I was listening yesterday, and they were talking about the fact that they haven't received anything from the $30 million award. And I got to tell you guys, that is a crock of crap. You're going to tell me they sold over $1 million worth of signed memorabilia, and that also went to the attorneys? Come on, they said he spent, $25 million on the defense, which was all his cash. Then where did the money from all of those items that he was holding up in the Las Vegas hotel trying to get back, where did the money from all of those things, the Heisman Trophy, his MVP trophies, that went somewhere? And I just can't believe that at this point in the game, the Goldmans haven't received anything. It just don't make a lot of sense. And if so, they better get a better attorney to help them collect some of this money. Of course, we want to talk about the world of golf as well. Jordan Spieth wins the Open. And for a lot of you guys, if y'all don't know what the Open is, it used to be called the British Open. But they went back to the formal name that they had back in the early 50s and 40s, back when I was just a mere thought. But it's called the Open. And I'll tell you what. Did any of you guys have an opportunity yesterday to watch Jordan Spieth and what he did down the stretch? Let's forget about the fact that he's 24 years old, second youngest man to ever accomplish winning 3 majors before the age of, true 24. He'll be 24 soon, like Jack Nicklaus. And then, of course, the third being Tiger Woods. But I got a question for a lot of you guys. We're talking about him because of what he's been able to accomplish now. And no, he wasn't that phenom little 7 or 8-year-old kid who was on a Johnny Carson show. But where does Jordan stack up with Tiger? Is he going to be the person that brings the excitement back to the game? Because I'm going to tell you what, that 13th hole yesterday was some of the craziest golf I've ever seen. It almost made a guy like me, who's a hacker. I'm not going to lie to you guys and tell you I got a scratch game or I got a handicap like most of my peers will tell you. I don't have a handicap because I shoot in the hundreds, okay? But after watching Jordan Spieth hit that ball so far out of nowhere to nowhere, I said to myself, well, gee, that looked like one of my slices. This guy is a reigning Masters champion, and he hits slices like I do. And yeah, I mean, when I pound one, it goes 400 yards, but it goes 100 yards this way, 100 yards that way, and a little 100 yards over this way. That is what that shot looked like yesterday, and it was hilarious. He actually made the game of golf look fun and happy again. And then you watch all the scenario leading around. You know, the thing that I know and I saw when I watched Jordan get up on top of the roof, of the top of the mountaintop, I should say the hilltop, is this guy loves the game because he knew more about the rules than the actual rule judges that were around him. He was telling them this, pointing to that. It was just it was almost like a fiasco. It was like a Laurel and Hardy taping of the Open. The guy slices the ball way out to nowhere land. I mean, it's almost as bad as, let me think who the golfer was. They couldn't even find his ball. Rory sliced one off, and they lost his ball. How many pros do you see losing balls? Because I'm going to tell you, when I'm out on the golf course, don't count the number of lost balls that I'm going because that's part of my reward. If I start the game with a pack of, 16 or say 8 packs of 3 balls, 24 balls, I give myself a reward when I come back in and I still got those 24 balls. If I still have 20 of those 24, we're going to celebrate. I might get a new pair of shoes. If I lose half of them, I'm going to celebrate with a great dinner. But typically, I expect to come back with maybe one sleeve of ball. And you guys who know golf, that's losing a ton of balls. But when is the last time you've watched a PGA and a Masters champion loses his ball? And it's crazy because they made the game seem fun for the hack like me. Because the pros were hacking away, and it was just great to see that this game, nobody has control of the ball. Not even the great one-timers, the Jack Nicklauses, the Rory McIlroys, the Jordan Spieth. All these guys can lose balls, and then they can also look like Laurel and Hardy at the same time. It was great just to watch it. I was captivated by it. Hopefully you guys got a chance to look at it. I want to know what you think about some of those crazy shots that we saw yesterday, and then some of the fantastic recoveries that we saw from the game as well. You're listening to the Legends Community Show right here on the Power of Voices. If you're just tuning in, my name is Greg Bell, former Ram, former Raider, but more importantly, the host of the Legends Community Show right here on thepowerofvoices.com. If you want to chime in, please do so. Shoot me a couple messages on the Facebook Live as we'll be there. I want to talk to basketball fans right about now as well. What about Kyrie Irving? Guys, was that like a slap in the face of LeBron James? I mean, LeBron has been building this team, helping this team, took him to a world championship, and his number 2 guy, remember his big 3, his number 2 guy decides to go in, see the owner at the end of the season, and basically say, I don't want to be second fiddle anymore. I'm the number 1 drafted guy. I want to be a key member, and I don't want to play second fiddle. In essence, I don't want to play with LeBron anymore. What do you think Dan Gilbert does today? What do you think the people of Cleveland are saying today? And then you got to wonder, what kind of relationship did Kyrie have with LeBron? You see what you see on the field, and I've told people all the time, just because you play with a guy doesn't make you friends with that guy. And evidently, there must have been something underlining that Kyrie and LeBron just didn't have worked out. Because now, 1 year after being removed from a world championship, Kyrie Irving is telling the world, I want to be the number 1 focus. I want out of Cleveland. What do you guys think? I want to know what you got to think about that. And also, before I leave and jump out of basketball, because we definitely have to talk about the boys in D-Town, what about LeVar Ball? We've talked about LeVar Ball now for about 3 months. Big Ballers brand. He got it balling up, and they've got the Big Ballers brand AAU team. Did you see LeVar on the YouTube yesterday? Pull his team out of the double pump best of the summer tournament in Anaheim. We thought that this guy was kind of on the edge after seeing the technical and pulling his team that was up by 9 points, which includes his son Melo. He pulled them from a tournament. And I want to know what your idea of this is and what you think about this, because this is kind of I've talked about it for years. I don't love the AAU world as it is. And this just makes it even more dirtier, smellier. I don't know what the right word for it is, but this is the part of the game that I really don't enjoy. When fathers get so engulfed into the game where they're yelling and screaming and cursing at officials, we're trying to set examples. And here's where LeVar, for me, truly crossed the edge, because not only are you trying to teach these kids something from a standpoint of their basketball training, but you're also trying to teach these kids life in general. As I say with my camp at Athletes for Life, we're trying to teach them some life skills that the game of football, the game of basketball can teach them and correlate that into life decisions. And what I saw from LeVar Ball yesterday didn't cut it. I want to talk about that as we go on here with the Legends Community Show. I want to know what you think about some of the stuff that LeVar has said and done. Mind you, these parents have entrusted their development, not only basketball-wise, into LeVar, but they've also entrusted him as a coach, as a father figure, where these kids can learn. Because believe it or not, probably, I don't know, let's say 20 or 30% of them might have both parents, or might not have their parent, a male figure in their life. A lot of times you see that in the AAU lifestyle, I guess you can say. It's not always about basketball. There's some skills and some life skills that we're also trying to teach them. And we do the same thing with Athletes for Life Summer Life Skill Program. It's one of those things where through that sport, we can translate and give them some true life skills through the games that they play. And sports is kind of an indicative way of showing some of the life skills you're hoping some of these kids are going to be able to have. But I'm just going to tell you, what LeVar did yesterday is part of the reason I don't like AAU basketball. I don't like AAU football. I don't like AAU baseball. I will say this. I was an AAU track guy, and the only reason I'm an AAU track guy is because that's all we have outside of your school sports. It's all AAU track. So track and field's a little bit different than these club programs that we have in terms of football, basketball, and baseball. And they really it's part of the meat and potato to the core of what we're talking about with these kids being around what we think are mentors. Want to know what you think about some of those things. But before I go too far, I want to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones backed Ezekiel Elliott and basically came out and said, look, there were no allegations of domestic violence back in July before they drafted him out of Columbus. And here's the thing, and maybe I'm wrong in saying this, maybe I'm right in saying it. Ezekiel's got to grow up. And I don't mean from a standpoint of take responsibility. No matter what he does, you're forced to accept responsibility when you get arrested, when you get stopped in a car doing 100 miles an hour in the middle of the afternoon. To be honest, it didn't really make the difference what time he was stopped doing 100 miles an hour. The fact that he was behind the wheel doing 100 miles an hour on a Dallas freeway speaks to the volumes of what we're talking about here. He's got to grow up. So I asked myself, what is Jerry Jones doing to help this kid to grow up? Because guess what, guys? Not only did Ezekiel Elliott get arrested and stopped for 100 miles an hour, well, you might remember Lucky Whitehead, another one of their young, talented wide receivers. Of course, the Cowboys had to release him after failing to make his court appearance for shoplifting. Jerry, what is it about wearing the star? It is at one time it was America's team. And Dallas gotten to the point where we're trying to keep it out of the face of being America's team, because you spend more time talking about domestic violence, robbery, possible theft, misuse of drugs, whatever it is. The Cowboys, and I say this in a good way, the owner and general manager, Jerry Jones and Jerry Jr., when do they start to put the hammer down? Because if they don't do it, Jason Garrett's not going to do it. And you can't hope and pray that the league is going to do it, because sometimes the city and the federal courts overrule what the NFL can do. They can try and set boundaries, but a lot of times the NFL is going to wait and see what the courts do before they do anything. So here in the case of Ezekiel Elliott and what happened back in Columbus, Ohio, hey guys, I don't know, and I'm not going to tell you I know what occurred, but what allegedly occurred and what was seen is that this young man put his hands on a young lady. And here's where we get that almighty question that everybody seems to always ask. Is it ever right for a man to put his hands on a woman? And I want to know what you think about that. You know, I've seen many incidents in my life that I'm, can sit here and proudly say, I've never had to put myself on that edge. And I really think you're really on that edge because it's a split decision. And hopefully you've learned the life skills throughout your life where you're capable of making split decisions. But the decision to whether to hit a woman and not hit a woman is one of those crazy split-second decisions that hopefully all men understand and understand well enough to be able to say, walk away. Now, I don't know what occurred that evening with Ezekiel Elliott other than what he says, she says, and the people around them say. So it's all hearsay from where I sit. But I do know he's gotten to a point in his life where it's not just about turning 21, turning 22, and assuming that means you're mature. It's about learning from other mistakes because guess what, guys? We've had enough cowboys make these same mistakes that you can just go back and watch the film of it and learn from it. I tell people all the time, you don't have to be the fool or the crazy or the dumbest person in the world to learn from people's mistakes. Sometimes it's just about opening your eye and going, oh, man, I was in that same position. I got to remember that. You don't have to make the same mistakes. It's like that old theory, when they talk about, when you're young, you turn the flame on your oven. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know if I put my hand in that flame, I'm going to get burnt. And the same goes for what goes on in these clubs late at night. If it's 2:30 in the morning and you're still out partying, you really are looking for some kind of trouble that you probably didn't expect, or you've been blown off the whole night and what you thought you was going to get at the end of the night, you ain't getting it. So go home, take yourself, get in the Uber, better than anything, get in the cab, let them take you home. Because that's always the worst decision I think when I think about NFL ball players and basketball players, probably the worst decision, and it just kind of eats at my core, is that when you're profiling the way they're profiling in their roles or in whatever that car might be, why can't you, hold on one second, why can't you catch a cab? Do you have to look that good driving that you're willing to put yourself in a situation where you'd get yourself a DUI? Why? That's a decision I will never understand. I never know. That's one I won't ever have to worry about, thank goodness. But man, Dallas, you got to get control of what's going on in the Big D. Last thing about football that I want to jump into some today is what is your response to Ole Miss's football coach Hugh Freeze resigning effective immediately this past week? And I don't know if many of you spent any time listening to it, but it was really because of the no-no. And if you don't know what the no-no is, it's female escort service. The no-no in college football. We've already seen what happened to Kentucky and some of the other programs with the, supposedly calling escorts for the young guys and for himself. There's an image that coaches have to keep. And guys, I know coaches that have been fired and it ruined their life. I don't know what this is going to do to Hugh Freeze, but here's a guy who's making an impression, showing life skills to kids in the Ole Miss program. And I'll tell you, Hugh is actually a good person. But this shows that everybody isn't always as perfect as you think on the outside. Making phone calls on university phones and from his office to female escort services. Well, Matt Luke is now the interim coach for Ole Miss, and he'll start the season for them. And who knows, he might find himself in a great position moving forward. Guys, you're listening to the Legends Community Show here on the Power of Voices. I'm Greg Bell. That's my hit list, and I'm going to jump right at the top, right back to where we want to talk about football, and definitely want to talk about the O.J. Simpson trial. What did you think about the trial? And I've heard the positives, the negatives, and I'll be honest, I've heard a lot of negatives. And here's the thing. When you start talking about this trial that we just witnessed and just watched, two things have to jump out in your mind. One, this has nothing to do with murder, has nothing to do with his feelings or about his attitude, in essence. Really, what the question was that you had to look at, and probably you had to hear between the lines, I think, a lot of it, was he remorseful, and has he been rehabilitated? And that's something that I know when the show went off, a lot of people talked about the fact that what is recidivism? Why is it that our recidivism rules and laws and statistics are so high? Because prison typically does not rehabilitate the criminals. And whether you're a mass murderer, whether you're a rapist, whether you're just a common thief, the recidivism in our prisons nationwide, not just in Nevada and California or Mississippi, but nationwide recidivisms are super high. These guys do not get rehabilitated. Sometimes they go in with a lesser crime and come out with, a murder tag on themselves, just protecting themselves during the course of their time being spent. But the one thing that I did hear, and I heard that more so from the guards and from the police system, more so than you heard it from O.J. Simpson, is that he was a model citizen inside that prison. And his number one thing they told him when he went into prison is, keep your nose clean. We don't want to hear anything about you doing X, Y, Z, meaning problems. And OJ spent 9 years for a, you know what, let's just be honest. He spent 9 years on what could be considered kidnapping with a deadly weapon, because holding somebody against his will, threatening, all that was, those are the lesser of the bottom line is he was really convicted, and he spent the 9 years because he kidnapped, held someone against their will in their own room, and he allowed guns to be drawn on them. And then here's the thing that blows my mind. Bruce, who is the collector and the guy who the gun was held to his head, he's also the guy who spoke on OJ's behalf yesterday from a character witness standpoint. How crazy was that? I mean, I'm sitting here watching this this trial kind of unfolding, and it really is not a trial. It was just a hearing, a parole hearing, I guess let's call it what it is. And you're sitting here and you're seeing these people who have the fate. Of course, a couple of them were in Nevada. A few others were in Las Vegas down at Lovelock. And you're hearing them go over, well, tell us about, Mr. Simpson, give us your take here. Because remember, when he did the trial in Las Vegas, he did not testify. So he wasn't called to the stand. So to hear OJ say what he said, it kind of blew my mind, because OJ basically said he's lived a how did he say it? I want to get this the right way. A non-confrontational life. And the web, the online services, the Twitters, the everything, they blew up when he said that. A non-confrontational life. He's always tried to live a non-confrontational life. And all of a sudden people blew up and said, what the hell is going on? How did that come out of his mouth? And here's the thing that blows my mind is maybe he ran out of money. I can't tell you, but who was giving him counseling? Who was telling him what the right words that should be coming out of his mouth in a parole hearing? Because the number one thing that he's already exemplified was that he's been a prisoner. Let's say it that way. He stayed out of trouble. He kept his nose clean. And the next thing that they're hoping to find and see in you in front of a parole board of that nature, especially on the national circuit that it turned into, was that you had a little remorse. Now, mind you, I want to count in my head to say that there were probably 5, maybe 7 times OJ said, "I'm truly sorry." And you have to take that for its word. Whether he truly emotionally is sorry, I'm not going to be the one that points the finger and says, "I don't believe the juice." But the fact of the matter is it came out of his mouth, and that was something that the parole board was hoping to hear, that he was sorry for the crimes that he had committed. But the blow my mind side of this is that when you listen to OJ, he kept pointing the finger at somebody else. He never said, "I did X, Y, and Z." And no matter how you look at it, and I know some people are going to be naysayers, and they're going to say, "Look, hey, he didn't hold the gun up to the guy's head." No, but the guy he was in control of did. He didn't grab anything from, the uniforms. He didn't have the bags of jerseys or whatever, the pillowcases of stuff that they took from his warehouses. He didn't have them in O.J. Simpson's hands, but the goons he brought with him to get the stuff, they did. And what it boils down to is that, like any pyramid, there's a point and there's a single head on top of that pyramid that was O.J. Simpson. And what filters down is just the tentacles of O.J. Simpson. So, one of the things the online services did is just they ridiculed him because basically there was no remorse from O.J. Simpson. And he finally got a chance to say his piece about what occurred in Las Vegas. And you got to remember, he wasn't under oath or anything of that nature. So he was allowed to basically say what he wanted to say and get it off of his back. And when he did that, whew, my goodness, the online circuit went berserk. It was just crazy to watch people go back to where we were, not just 9 years ago, but 11 years ago when he got off of the crime of the century. And I'm not going to sit here and tell people that this is what I believe or this is what I believe or that, or it's irrelevant right now. The courts found him innocent, so we have to live with the fact that this man here, who hypothetically was Jack the Ripper one night, and he got a not guilty verdict from the how do they always joke about that? They say from a group of our peers. They voted him not guilty. Then, of course, the Goldmans turned it right around. And this is one thing that and of course, I being Greg Bell, and you're listening to the Legends Community Show here on the Power of Our Voices. And when I say I do not believe in civil justice. One of the great things I think, in my lifetime, I've had the fortune enough to live in foreign countries where, like in England, you can't sue someone civilly. That's just not the way they do their court. If you break the law, you create a crime, you get tried on that, and that's where it ends. But here we have in California civil opportunities, and you can sue somebody civilly for anything. I mean, just think about it. Defamation, if your character is part of your persona, you can sue them for defamation of your character and of your name. It just becomes ridiculous to me. And of course, that is our United States civil verdict, that they got on OJ. And mind you, $30 million is a massive judgment. They don't even know if Juice had that much money or had his hands to be able to get on that much money, because they tend to forget that legal team that he put together that got him off of that murder trial, he probably spent $30 million on those guys. So whatever net worth he had, it went out the door, right, with Johnny Cochran and the Kardashian and whoever was on that dream team. They got their share. But of course, the Goldmans are still sitting there with this $30 million judgment that, frankly, they're never going to collect it. At this point in the equation, whoever's advising Juice, whoever is kind of earning him money, which of course is going to be Bruce, remember, they've kind of given him the Florida laws. And it's pretty interesting because Florida is one of those states that doesn't allow for civil awards to be taken from an individual's pension. So the word on the street right now is Juice has anywhere between 2,700 and 10,200, and that's a giant a volume of area, I should say. But it's really based around the fact that we don't know if he begun taking his NFL pension when he was 55, 60, or the full term, which is 65, which OJ, I think I read, I want to say he's like 68, 69 years old. Well, here's the beauty of this NFL pension, if you want to call it beautiful, because I think it's a horrible pension. And it's one of those pensions that should be ratified and be corrected so it matches what all other pro sports pensions provide. But the long and the short of it is, it's based on the number of years. You get something like, I want to say, $255 for every year you played in the National Football League. A year being considered 3 games and 3 years and 3 games as a vested player, and so you qualify for what's considered a pension. And you get a monthly check every month that is taxable. Well, right now that check, as I said, could be anywhere between 2,700 and 10,200 on the Juice's behalf. And of course, if you know the Juice, and the one thing I can tell you, Juice had a lot of self-driven pension money that he got from Avis, from his few of the franchises that he had. He had some good advisor to put him in a very, very lucrative stable of money. Of course, a lot of that stable is gone to Johnnie Cochran and the Dream Team. But here we are back to, like I say, civil justice. The word on the street is that him being in jail for the past 9 years has grown his annual number to where he'll probably be living somewhere close to that 12 to 15,000 a month number on that self-driven pension, that along with the NFL pension that he'll be getting just as well. So here's the question lies to a lot of people wondering, well, why can't the Goldmans get a piece of that? Well, because Florida does not allow it. That's the simple answer. And hopefully people understand it. From where I sit, unfortunately, I'm just not big in the civil courts because I think sometimes you can sue a person for anything. And the question that so many people had, and like I said, when the verdict came down and he was given the freedom that he'll be getting in October, the question started blowing up on the internet. And here's what I want to know why. People said, well, was that enough time? Should the Goldmans have appealed, or should they just left him in jail? And I stopped and said to myself, holy moly. This is our world. We've gotten to be so judgmental. I think we as a nation can't see forgiveness. And whether we're looking at the trial of the century or looking at the mockery of the trial of a decade ago, what happened in Las Vegas, the question I want to say to so many people is, how do we get to the point where the race issues that we've had have just continued to escalate? And it blows my mind because so many of us have watched the shootings that we have on the police officers. And, I'm not even going to attempt to give you my 2 cents on what has happened in Minnesota again. Because some of this that I read on the internet and see on the internet, it's really just about race. And I think we as a culture, as a people, have come a long way from where my father's was. My mother and father were raised in the South back during the time of Jim Crow, back through the time of the emancipation. I know they're not that old, but, they saw lynches. They saw imprisonment. They picked cotton. All the things that you might, as a kid, or some of you might have thought or heard about and read about, some of our parents has actually lived that life. And I know when I look at my parents and talk with my parents and they take me back to Alabama, Selma, my family were right there. We were part of that march across Selma's Bridge. We've grown as a country so far beyond that. But every time I see things like O.J. Simpson, because O.J. is a true reflection of how far we've come and how far we got to go. It just blows my mind. Hey guys, you're listening to the Legends Community Show here on the Power of Voices. I'm your host, Greg Bell, talking a little O.J. Simpson. Of course, if you tune in here, I'm going to give an opinion on pretty much anything and everything that is sports. Had to dive into O.J. just a tidbit because there's so many untruths. There's so many truths. And probably the biggest thing that I'm looking for more than anything is, will there be remorse? Will this be a model person after he leaves? Because no matter how you look at it from this point moving forward, OJ is a convicted a felon, not he's a former prison inmate. And now the question is has he been rehabilitated? No one is asking that question. And I think that's really the only question we need to be asking. Will he be rehabilitated? Has he been rehabilitated? And will that transcend to making him a better person when he walks back into society? And that's really the only question we have to ask. There are not a lot of other things that we're trying to get from O.J. Simpson. For most part, nobody even really wants O.J. Simpson to be around. But he's going to be a citizen in the state of Florida, and you're going to see him. Because that's the one thing I don't think anything that Juice really cares to do is to ride off into the sunset. He wants to be a part of the light. And I think if there's one thing I wish more than anything for the Juice is you've got money to live with. Take it and kind of not necessarily run into the sunset, but kind of stay out of the light for a few years. You don't have to be, in my mind, the Juice. You can be Orenthal, James Simpson. What's wrong with being OJ and not being in the light? And that's what I think so many people are going to be hoping and praying, because at some point you just want to say, who cares about OJ? He's not that relevant to our world anymore. And all we can say is wherever he goes, it just seems to always bring light. And how can he kind of dull that light so he can just live a simple and ordinary life? Because I tell you what, I've been in those situations in life where, maybe you're not talking to your son as much as you'd like, or you want to say more things to him. Man, when I saw them put the camera in front of OJ's youngest son, he didn't even want to talk about his father. And I'm wondering how his relationships are with his kids right about now, because no matter what they're going to do in their life, he's going to be a part of it. He is their blood. I mean, Justin could one day need a kidney or liver from his dad, and I don't know, a kidney, whatever. If you don't have a relationship with that person who is your blood relative, who's your kin, man, life seems so short. And I'm just telling you from experience, guys, it can eat at your soul, at your heart, and it really pulls at you. And don't know where the young daughter is right now, but his oldest daughter was right there by his side, and she talked about the fact that he was her rock. And it's going to be interesting just to see how he can corral and maybe at some point bring his family back together, because I think when you say the words family, it means something special. And right now for the Simpson family, it just seems like it's so divided as a group right now, and it's scary. It's truly scary because he's going to be back in the public eye in 2 months. August, September, and then, guys, wham, bam, he'll be walking out of Lovelace, boarding a plane, probably a private jet, leaving to go to South Beach, back to South Florida. So from my standpoint and for my money, I just really want to see how he brings his family back as a family, as a whole unit. And hopefully they're not divided and they can go ahead and live healthy, productive lives, because right now there's nothing productive in the way that most of the Simpson kids are going right now. They, not being able to speak to your father and be a part of your father's life can be a truly hard thing. And I'm just telling you from experience, guys, sometimes you need that love that only a father can give. You're listening to the Legends Community Show right here on the Power of Voices. As I told you guys, I wanted to talk about golf. I wanted to talk about Jordan Spieth. I don't know why I keep butchering his name, but Jordan Spieth, and the win and becoming the second youngest individual to win multiple majors behind Jack Nicklaus. Guys, this was the best of golf that I think I've ever watched, and it was the best and the worst all at the same time. And when I say the worst, it was the worst play because there was a lot of pros making horrible shots, missing easy putts, chipping. I don't know if I've ever seen more balls go into sand than I did last weekend at the Open. But the best part of the Open for me is that it made it look ordinary. You know, sometimes when you watch pros go out there and play, they're so talented, they're so gifted, it takes the fun out of it. I mean, I know I used to talk to people and they would ask me, you know, what did I see or how did I know to make that move, things of that nature. And that was just a gift. And you think that when you get to the level of that title of professional, you're going to see things that only professionals can do. But man, oh man, for my sake, and if you're a golfer like me, which there are probably more me's than there are them, they made it seem like a fun game to go play. Go out and play a round of golf, man, because if you slice it bad, don't worry about it. You get a chance to make up for it. If you throw it in the dirt, into the sand, like so many pros went into the bunkers. I never seen pros go in the bunker like they did last week at the Open. But it just made it look like an ordinary game for ordinary folks. And the only thing about it, I play the game of golf, and there's nothing ordinary about those shots, guys. They're all hard shots. And yes, a pro makes it look easy. But wasn't it fun this past weekend to watch so many, Kuchar, Rory, you name it, Sergio, all of them were hitting just terrible shots. And yeah, they recovered, but it was just great to see guys look ordinary. That says, oh, we can go out and play like that. It's just fun when you see the pros make the hardest game simple. And when they're making it so simple, they make some of the greatest mistakes. I'm just telling you, that was the best Open I've ever watched on television. It was probably the best golf because it captivated me. It made me say to myself, oh, man, I've done that. Or, man, I remember when I did that. Or, man, my boy, he shot the same kind of shot a week ago. He made that same bad, horrible shot. It was just fun to say that in front of the TV and listen to the broadcasters go, oh, what a horrible shot by Rory McIlroy. You know, the English accents, that was a terrible version of an English accent. And I apologize to all my English friends. I just butchered up an English accent. But when you heard the English broadcasters say, oh, what a horrible shot by Rory McIlroy, or, oh, Justin, what was he thinking? What a terrible shot by Justin Spieth. It was fun to hear these guys say that because typically in the world of golf, Tiger made it look like it was the easiest game. He made it seem like winning was simple. Jordan Spieth, he came out of nowhere. He made it look like, hey, I'm 23 years old. I'm winning the Masters. Woo! This is a simple game for a pro. But after last week, guys, it made me feel like, okay, I probably got a 20 or 30 handicap, which basically means I'm a hack. But it made it fun for me. I think, heck, I've almost pulled my clubs out of the bag and said, let me go out here and swing at a few balls. I can recover. Jordan Spieth, why am I killing his name? But Jordan goes out and just butchers the 13th. And then he turns right around, birdie, eagle, birdie. Now, that has never happened to me. When I go out and butcher the holes like Jordan was doing, I butcher them. And I take a lot of grass with me as well. But the thing about it, it's a good round of golf. Okay, I went through 18 holes. I got through it. After watching Jordan yesterday, I don't think I've ever in my day, in my life, or in my game of golf had a hole like his 13. Now, mind you, when I do it, nobody's out there. Of course, I lose balls. And if I had 17, 18 people right next to my ball, when it flies 100 yards away from me, I never lose a ball either. But Jordan recovered, and the one thing I have to tell you is I started saying to myself, is this young man better than Tiger? Because from my era, as a 54-year-old man on this earth, he's the greatest golfer I think I've seen in my days. I wasn't old enough to really to respect or be able to be in awe of Arnold Palmer or Jack Nicklaus. Even though I grew up in Columbus, where Jack was probably the greatest name to come out of Upper Arlington and off the golf field, that is, and come from Ohio State. But Jack was a little ahead of me. So I have to think of who was the golfer that made this game what it is for me today. And of course, that being Tiger Woods. And, it was great to see Tiger tweet, Jordan to say, hey, congratulations for what you just did. That's a champion round of golf. Great to see Jack Nicklaus tweet Jordan, what a great round of golf. But for my money, I'm trying to say to myself, could this guy be as good as Tiger? Because I'm telling you, without a doubt, guys, he has all the God-given ability. Just watching what I watched yesterday, and his mental part of the game is kind of like Tiger's was before the beating of the Cadillac. Before Tiger got divorced and that whole thing shook his mind, he had probably one of the most vicious killer instinct type minds of a golfer. And when I watched Jordan yesterday come around, put himself in position to make right of his wrong, and to go after Kushner the way he did, it was almost like, okay, I'm not letting you win by any means necessary. I'm going to get this job done. And he went out there with just a killer instinct and said, done. And I'm just telling you, if you're a Tiger fan, if you are a Nicklaus fan, could Jordan be the next great golfer that will eclipse the major numbers that Tiger looked like he was going to do 5-6 years ago? I mean, we thought Tiger would be at 30 majors by now. But it shows how mental the game of golf is. And it also shows how it can just beat you down without even touching you. This game is such a mental and dominating sport that ball controls everything you think about, move to, react to. And in the long short of it is that if your mind isn't right as you go into especially a Sunday morning round, if your mind's not right, even the pros can get it wrong and fall flat on their face. And best off for Jordan, he only fell halfway down because he was able to recover like I don't think I've seen by any golfer, even including Tiger Woods. Tiger has never put himself in that kind of a situation. And my hat truly came off to Jordan yesterday as he showed why he is going to be a force to be reckoned with in the PGA. Great round of golf. Man, that's all I can tell you, and that's where we'll leave it from the world of golf. You're listening to the Legends Community Show right here on the Power of Voices. And before I get out of here, probably got about 10 minutes here, I want to talk about the relationship that must be sour right about now. And if you've ever been in this type of a relationship, I'd love to know what you think about this because, LeBron James came back home 3 years ago. And in the last 3 years, they've gone to the finals 3 times, winning 1. And let's face it, they're going up against the best 5-man roster there is in the National Basketball Association. But LeBron James gives Cleveland a chance. And now all of a sudden, his running mate, his point guard, who truly is a phenomenal ball handler and a great scorer in his own right, has decided, I don't want to play second fiddle to LeBron James anymore. Now, the question I have for all of you is, what should Dan Gilbert do? Dan's sitting really on a pins and needle job right now. He fired his general manager, who most people said was overqualified and was probably the best man for the job. And he fires him at the end of the season, has not replaced him with a quality general manager. And then on top of it, we find out today that Kyrie had a meeting with Dan Gilbert. And in that meeting, he basically said, I want to be traded. So a trade demand has been put down by the number 2 player on the Cleveland Cavaliers. And at some point, I got to believe LeBron James, 1, knew it was coming down. 2, I would think maybe Kyrie had an opportunity to talk to LeBron. And if he didn't, what do you think about that? I mean, one thing I've always told people about the National Football League is just because I play with a guy doesn't mean I'm truly a friend of that guy's. And I wonder how much animosity was Kyrie holding back over these last couple of years. Because think about it. You know, when they win, it's always LeBron's reason why they won. He carried them. But when they lose, well, you know, Kevin Love didn't deliver and Kyrie made some bad shots, took some bad shots, whatever. Did that wear on Kyrie Irving? Something basically made him erupt. And I would love to know what it is. At some point, I'm sure LeBron and Kyrie both are going to sit down and give their version of what's going down. But right now, it's mind-boggling that a team that came so close to winning a second WNBA, I'm sorry about that, guys. You're not women. NBA championship, they came so close to doubling up, and they've had 3 straight chances with Golden State. And next year is going to be 4 as well. But the fact that you have this animosity, is that the reason they got beat? I'm sure Gilbert's got to be saying, well, how long has this been going on? And why am I just finding out about it now? And if you're a Cleveland fan, what is your feeling? Haven't you embraced Kyrie Irving? I mean, that's one of the things that's always telling about fans. You know, fans always embrace their players. And sometimes players just basically don't care. And the question you got to ask is, Kyrie, you know, does he care? What was it? Was it one issue? Was it 5 things? What was it that made him say, I don't want to be in the Cleveland Cavaliers uniform anymore? And let's be honest, what is Dan Gilbert going to do? You know, the last time a player came out and said he didn't want to be there, he lost him and didn't get nothing for him. Kyrie's under contract right now. What kind of maneuvering can you do? Because I'm going to tell you right now, if I were the Lakers, I'd give up a few players, quality players too, to get a Kyrie Irving. If I'm the Clippers, they almost have to get into the bidding war for Kyrie Irving. And what are they going to give up? They're going to have to give up a few because point blank, think about it. They don't have a true point guard anymore now that Chris Paul is in a red and white Houston, I'm really butchering it tonight, guys. Houston Rocket uniform. So who becomes the point? Who becomes the leader for this team? And that's more than anything. It's an important phrase you got to use when you talk about who that person is Kyrie's replacing, because what's the one demand Kyrie wants to be? He wants to be the focal point. He wants the offense to run through him. He wants this team to run through him. He would like to be a bigger piece of the success of what this team does, something that evidently he thinks he's not getting in Cleveland at this point in the equation. So, I mean, I want to know. You text me, you shoot me an email. I don't care what you want to do. gbell@thepowerofvoices.com. Shoot me an email. I like to know, and I'll read them out next week. What is your true feeling? What should Dan Gilbert do with Kyrie Irving? What should LeBron say in regards to Kyrie Irving asking for this demand? And the last thing I want you to think about, where does this put LeBron James? LeBron's already said he can't win with his big 3. We got to beef it up. We got to get better shooters. We got to get quicker players. Is there somewhere in the equation where, you know, Kyrie is going to New York because we want to get, you know, Carmelo Anthony and a couple other guys? I mean, what do you do to unload a guy like Kyrie Irving when you know you got him under contract? He just basically physically does not want to play for you anymore. Do you ride it out? Because it wouldn't be the first time. He's not the first guy to go into management and say, I'd like to be traded. And management says, no, play your contract. We're paying you. Do what you said you're going to do. So much that you have to ask, but probably my only question is why? What transpired over the last 3 weeks that made you not happy with the situation you're in right now? I don't know, but I'm hoping Brian Windhorst or whoever the beat reporters who been around LeBron James for 20 decades, it seems like, 20 years. What's the reason, Kyrie? I want to know what that is that said to you, I don't want to be here anymore. And I don't want speculations. I'm just hoping and praying that he'll take the mic and let us all know what it was that made him want out of Cleveland. You're listening to the Legends Community Show here on thepowerofvoices.com. Guys, I am your host, Greg Bell. We've been talking a lot of OJ, talking about the Goldmans, talking about the last trial of the century. Of course, we had to mention Jordan Spieth's win at the Open, becoming the second youngest individual to win multiple majors behind Jack Nicklaus and just ahead of Tiger Woods. Also talked about Kyrie Irving. Cleveland Cavaliers number 2 man in charge said to the owner, I want out of here. So much going on in the world of sports. Talked about LeVar Ball and what his blow up at AAU. And guys, if your kids are in AAU, find a school program that teaches these kids some life skills and competition at the school level. So many things we were on. Talked about the Cowboys. Jerry, got to get the house under control. Lucky Whitehouse released from the Cowboys for failing to appear for his shoplifting charge that he had earlier last year. And, of course, talking about Ezekiel Elliott. My take on Ezekiel, of course, like most people, he's got to mature. He's got to become a young man, and he's got to do it at a fast pace now. We can't wait till next year or next month. We've got to get Ezekiel in here and get him to understand that he is an important piece of the Dallas Cowboys union and that team. And without him, that engine might stall. So, Jerry Jones, when do you step away from the Golden Mountain and start making some demands about your players? Because the one thing you do better than any team, you promote your players. You push them out into the public eye. You want them to be there. But at the same time, there are some young kids that need your help as a mentor, making sure they make the right choices. All that and much more. We had a fun day here on the Legends Community Show. Guys, look, tune in to me next week. We'll be talking more football, talking more basketball, and maybe, just maybe, Kyrie Irving will come out and tell everybody why you didn't want to play with King James any further. This is the Ford. Ooh, I almost blew it, guys. It's coming up soon, but you know that season. Hey, this is the Legend Community Show, signing out from here in an undisclosed location in Michigan. This is the Notre Dame Den, guys. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.